Welcome back. You're watching Traders Corner, and joining me as always in studio is Garth McKenzie, founder and editor of Traders Corner. Garth, welcome.
Hi, Julieta.
Garth, we're continuing our retrospective, and if people, sharp-eyed viewers, might have noticed that we're wearing the same outfits, and these are pre-recorded shows because, in fact, you will be on your honeymoon by the time people watch this. So, congrats ahead of time. Garth, we were looking at some of the stats in the last show. This week, we're going to look at some of the best and worst trades of 2015, and that's always quite fun. And in fact, we started with a trade that was probably both best and worst trade for you. So, and that was the short position that you took on SAB Miller.
Yes, that's right. I mean, this was certainly a very interesting trade that we did, and you're right, it fits into the category of best and worst. And I would actually almost say probably one of the best, and I'll explain why, as much as that might sound strange. SAB Miller, for me, throughout the first half of the year was very lethargic, and in July, August, it began to break down below some support. And you can see that on the graph over there. It's quite clearly evident that the share price broke down below support there in August, and it then rallied up. And this is a classic rising wedge pattern that we saw forming over here during August and into early September. And you know, if you showed me this chart 10 times and obviously cut off the right-hand side there, and showed me this rising wedge that was rallying up to test the underneath of this overhead resistance now, your stochastic's becoming overbought, it now begins to break to the downside at the bottom of this rising wedge. Well, I would say to you, 10 out of 10 times, I'll short that, because in a textbook world, that rising wedge breaking to the downside points to the fact that the stock is going to go back and retest the prior low that it made at the beginning of that rising wedge pattern. So we did that. We went short, and I shorted SAB Miller at 633 Rand with a stop loss at 650, and I was looking for the price to move back down to the prior low at 580 Rand. And it started to work for us. In fact, we put the trade on one show. It was working nicely the following week. It looked as if everything was going according to plan. And then what happened one afternoon was we started to get wind of some rumors that there might be a takeout offer made by Anheuser-Busch InBev.
In fact, that was the Tuesday afternoon after we had recorded the show.
That's correct, yeah. After we had finished recording here, I went back to my office and started to get wind of these rumors. And, these rumors were not new. SAB Miller every year has been the subject of a potential takeout by Anheuser-Busch InBev. And you kind of get to the point where you say, oh, yeah, we've heard that before, it's never going to happen. Well, in fact, this time, it turned out that the rumors were indeed true. The thing was that I didn't want to be sitting short of a stock like this when those rumors were out in the market, because I've seen in the past, even if the rumors were amounted to nothing, that share price can really put on some gas when these rumors do the rounds. So I actually executed that stop loss quite quickly the very following morning after that. And we cut out, I didn't even wait for the stop loss to be triggered. I cut it first thing the next morning at 634 Rand. And we ended up losing only 793 Rand of our capital, which equated to 0.22% of capital. So pretty much nothing, really.
In fact, it's a multi-choice subscription.
Well, there we go. Exactly. It's a multi-choice subscription. And shortly thereafter, within an hour after that, there was confirmation that Anheuser-Busch and SAB Miller were, in fact, in talks, and that share price put on 130 Rand on the day or something like that. And it was an unbelievable rally.
I don't think anyone's ever seen a move like that in a stock as big as SAB Miller. And, it was all we could talk about for a few days afterwards.
Very much so. It was a black swan event. You don't see these sort of things happening very often, and this certainly was a black swan event. Why do I say it could fit into the camp of one of the best trades? Well, it could be one of the worst, but I'll say one of the best. Why? Because we executed the stop loss, and we stuck to the strategy, and we didn't get hiding on this trade. And, sometimes you can look at a trade where you lose money and you can say, well, you know what, my risk management saved me here. I didn't lose a lot of money. I stuck to the strategy. It could have been so much worse. And I look at that and I say, well, hey, you know what, actually, I feel good about the fact that I closed that trade as quickly as I did. I didn't hesitate. I got out. Because the reality is that if we hadn't have executed that stop loss when we did, we would have probably lost in excess of 20,000 Rand on this trade in the same day that we closed this trade out.
Okay, so that's a pretty sobering thought, I have to say.
Yeah.
So well done on that. And unfortunately, you didn't go long, SAB Miller, because if you had, I think the charities would be smiling even wider this year.
Absolutely. But there was nothing at that stage telling me that I should be long, I must say. Yeah.
Okay, Garth, so that was SAB Miller, a short position which you cut out of. A trade that you would classify as one of your best trades was a short position on MTN.
Yes, that's right. MTN's been weak since the middle of this year, and it's been underperforming quite badly, recently, very badly, in fact. But what we identified was in July, the stock had been very lethargic, and then it started to form this little pennant type pattern, or triangle, if you like. And these patterns are typically a continuation pattern within a trend, and they usually result in a break in the direction of the prevailing trend. And in this case, we saw the stock coming down and forming this triangle, so the likelihood was that it was going to break to the downside to continue that weak trend. And what also got me interested in this trade at the time was that the market overall had been quite strong in July, and yet MTN just could not get a bid going to the upside. So it made me think that this stock was really underperforming quite badly, and the likelihood was very strong that it was going to break to the downside. And sure enough, that's what happened. So we went short at 217 Rand per share with a stop loss at 221. And, sometimes you get bad luck, like we did with the SAB Miller. Sometimes you get a bit of good luck. And in this case, the good luck did come our way. And it came in the form of a trading update, which indicated that MTN's profits were likely to be about, I think, 15 to 20% lower for the year. And that was a negative surprise for the market, and it resulted in that share price gapping down very, very quickly. And quite quickly, we were able to lock in our profits. We closed it at 202 Rand, and we made 10,600 Rand on that trade, which equated to 3.17% of capital.
Okay. Now, however, in hindsight, you might actually say this could also have been a worse trade, because if you'd just run that short, you'd be rolling in its
very much so. I mean, the stop loss on that trade has never been triggered. To this day, it's never been triggered. So if we had have been a bit more brave and we'd been a bit more patient, yes, we could have continued to run that short. And you can see that, closing it out at 202 Rand a share, well, now it doesn't look so clever, given that it's traded all the way down to 140 recently. So if we had stayed short, then we would have done better. And maybe the lesson here was that we needed to perhaps run some sort of a trailing stop loss and be a bit more patient in terms of holding the short. But, closing out a trade is selling, I like to say, but in this case, because we were short, we wouldn't have been selling. We would have had to buy back that short. But so closing out a trade, I always find, is the hardest part of trading, knowing when to take a profit effectively.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks so easy when you've got retrospectively all that price action between July and now to have run a short position. So unfortunately, that's life.
Yep.
Garth, just a question though: could you run a short for as long as 5 months?
Yes, you can run a short for even a lot longer than that if you want to. There's no limitation on how long you can run a short position for. Same as there's no limitation in terms of how long you can keep a long position for. So we could have remained short for the whole time if we had wanted to.
Yeah, maybe exercise next year is to work out how much we would have made if you had cut out at 140. All right, so, but nonetheless, you made money for the portfolio, so it's classified as a good trade.
Yep.
What about a short in the Rand? And in fact, that was how we started the year, and it kind of straddled 2014 and 2015.
Yeah, that's right. We actually put this trade on in December of or I think it might have even been November of 2014. And at the time, I said that something I've noticed from a seasonal perspective is that the Rand always seems to be weak during January. And I've noticed it, since the early 2000s, I've noticed this theme, that the Rand generally is weak in the beginning of the year. And so what I said at the end of 2014 was that I would want to start our 2015 portfolio a little bit earlier by opening this short position on the Rand, and I would run it over December and into January. And it worked well for us. What got me interested was the fact that the Rand has been in a weakening trend, and it's been like that since 2011. It made this perfect triangle pattern here with clear 4 waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was looking for the 5th wave to then break weaker. So based on that, I went short Rands at 10 Rand 99, and I had a stop loss on the Rand at 10 Rand 69, looking for the Rand dollar to move out and to weaken. And it worked very nicely for us. And the weakness actually came earlier than usual. As I said, usually we spot this weak trend in January, but in this case, the weakness actually set about in December. And we were able to bank profits on that trade at 11 Rand 60. So it effectively meant that the Rand weakened by 6% within the month, and we banked that profit. We made 13,000 Rand on that trade, which equated to 5.25% of capital. And that really did put us on the front foot in terms of this year's portfolio, because it was nice to put that capital and that profit in the bank right from the word go.
Because maybe that was also one of the features of this year, and I think also last year we started off on a strong footing. When you've got money in the kitty already, you've kind of got a bit of breathing space to go out, and maybe take a little bit more time to make trades, etc.
Yeah.
So it's nice to start off, on a positive note rather than on a negative.
Very much so. It's like a batsman. When you go out to bat, you want to put some runs on the board, just so that you don't go out for a duck. It gives you that little bit more confidence. And that's it. So to start the trade with a winner is always fun.
Having said that, though, you could have been short the rand this entire year, although except maybe between January and February when it did actually strengthen a little bit. But from that point, I mean,
yes.
You'd be, 40% up, essentially?
Very much so. The rand has been extremely weak this year. It's depressing to look at how much value the rand has lost against the dollar during 2015. So yes, we could have stayed short, and we would have looked a whole lot better for that trade. I mean, I think the profits that we could have made on being short the rand would have probably quadrupled from that figure.
Yeah. Okay, what about Sanlam? That was a position that you took earlier in the year. It was a long position that you took in the trade. How did that work out? And why have you decided to highlight this one?
Yeah, this one we did in January of 2015. So it was one of our first trades as well. And this was at a time when Sanlam was actually still trending higher, making higher lows and higher highs. It's obviously become quite a weak stock in the latter half of this year, but at this stage, certainly you would wanted to be trading it long, and we did trade it long. We identified this channel that was evident on Sanlam over there, and you can see that the stock came back, it tested the 200-day moving average, and it reversed up off the 200-day moving average and off the bottom of this channel. And you can see on prior occasions also, when the stock reverses up off the 200-day moving average, it typically made a nice sharp move to the upside. So we took that as an opportunity to buy Sanlam. We went in at 63.45 rand with a stop loss at 62.50. And the target here was just for a move back to the top of that channel at 68 rand. And it got there. Within a week, we managed to bank our profit. And I remember this. I was actually away on a skiing holiday when this profit was taken. I think had I been around to watch the stock, it would have probably been prudent to run a trailing stop loss below the previous day's low point in order to try and extend the profitability of this trade a little bit. But alas, I wasn't here. But you can see it did break out to the top side, and certainly it moved quite a lot higher after that. Nevertheless, it was a good trade. We managed to bank the profit at 68 rand, profit of almost 12,000 rand on that trade, which equated to 6.75% of capital. And if I'm not wrong, I think this was actually our single biggest profitable trade for the year in terms of percentage growth on capital.
Which is quite interesting, because Sanlam, it's a sort of a so-called boring stock. You wouldn't think of it as a trader's share. Guys, just maybe a quick point before we round up and wrap up with some of the important stats, just a reminder. When I first met you, you were much more of a bull, and yet in the last couple of years, you've introduced more shorting positions into your trading. Is that likely to be, I think, a thing of the future, given the state of the markets? I
think so. We have done it, but we've done okay on some of our short positions this year. And I think if we do go into a market where there's weakness, then definitely we probably will look to employ more short positions. Having said that, though, our market is interesting at the moment. If you actually scratch a bit below the surface, we are in a bear market in many sectors and many stocks. Take out Naspers, take out SAB Miller, take out Richemont, and a handful of other stocks. Yeah. There's a lot of domestic stocks and resources that are incredibly weak in our market.
Yeah. Okay, guys, to end off with then some of the key stats.
Right, so this is just wrapping up 2015. We've done 46 shows this year, 31 trades completed, 17 winning trades, average of 3% of capital growth on those winning trades. And when we had 14 losing trades where we averaged a loss of minus 1.25% on the losing trades. Total return for the year, 42.5%, which is a nice outperformance of the top 40 index. So I'm very happy to round it off. And I'm also very happy to take a bit of a break now over December. And we'll come back in 2016 refreshed and revitalized and ready to start again.
Yeah, well, that's where we leave it. Garth, thanks as always for the year, for the shows, and also for the money that you made for charity. Much appreciated. We're very proud of you here.
Thank you.
Garth McKenzie is, of course, founder and editor of Traders Corner.